Tonight, race against the clock. The desperate search for survivors in the wreckage and devastation left by the earthquake in Turkey and Syria. Plus, raising the threat level.
When both sides are assuming the worst about the other, it leads to dangerous miscalculation.
The Pentagon report detailing China as the greatest national security threat to the United States. And arrested for charity.
I don't care what they say, they are wrong and I'm right.
The 78-year-old grandma arrested for feeding the homeless. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. Hope amid devastation. Good evening in Washington. I'm Jenna Browder. The death toll from that catastrophic earthquake along the border of Turkey and Syria is still climbing, now over 23,000. The search teams are still looking for survivors, although time is running out. Emergency crews are still making dramatic rescues as they pull victims from the rubble. Mark Martin has our top story.
Even days after the massive quake that hit the border region between Turkey and Syria this past Monday, rescuers are still finding survivors. It's an example that there's still hope for finding people alive. The vice president of Turkey says more than 120 people have been pulled from the devastation of buildings recently. This example lifting the spirits of those in the hardest hit parts of Turkey and Syria. Rescue workers pulled a mother and her 6-year-old daughter from the debris using heavy equipment. They worked for almost 20 hours to reach them inside a collapsed home. Crews search around the clock, hoping to hear signs of life. Workers also rescued a father 3 days after the quake, 2 hours after crews pulled out his daughter from the same area. There's also positive news on the newborn baby born underneath the rubble. She's been named Aya, which is Arabic for miracle, and she's getting healthier at the hospital each day. Tragically, her mother did not survive. Although many have been found alive, rescue stories are becoming fewer as the days go on. Tents have been set up to give survivors left with nothing a place to stay. Turkey's foreign ministry says nearly 100 countries have offered to help, and nearly 7,000 rescue personnel are already on the ground. The aid is necessary as hundreds of thousands of people have been displaced from their homes. CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell is on the scene in Adana, Turkey.
Behind me, you can see one of the collapsed buildings here in the city of Adana, where the workers are literally digging by hand throughout the rubble, trying to find survivors. The difficulty right now and the urgency is to try to find those survivors because of the length of time after the earthquake and also because of the cold weather. We've been told that there's really enough search and rescue teams to find about 10% of the collapsed buildings. And some of the survivors are actually using social media to tell people where they are. So the urgency right now, the devastation is hard to describe, and the urgency is very great, not only for those trapped in the rubble, but for the survivors after this massive earthquake.
CBN's Operation Blessing is on the ground distributing supplies to survivors.
We start delivering some food and also some solar lamps, and plus some bags with hygiene and some basic items for the families. Also for the kids, we gave some snacks and some juices and some Nutri-Bars that is very needed in this time.
And Operation Blessing's Diego Traverso is grateful for the help to provide these things.
Thank you so much for your support, for your prayers, for your partnership. Operation Blessing is committed to be here and support the victims thanks to your support.
Mark Martin, CBN News.
And joining us now is Edward Graham, Chief Operating Officer of Samaritans Purse, which is also providing critical aid and disaster assistance in Turkey. Edward, welcome. Great to have you on with us this evening. So we're 4 days out from the initial earthquake and still hearing these miraculous stories of survival and rescue. How hopeful are you that more survivors will be found underneath the rubble?
Yeah, there have been incredible stories of survival, but as each day goes on, that's going to be more and more of a miracle and a story of a miracle for those that survive. But they have tens and thousands that are injured and hurting from this. And so that's why Samaritans Purse has deployed its Tier 3 hospital. That's about a 52-bed surgical capability that we'll have set up. It'll land tonight in Turkey, and then hopefully in about 24 hours we'll have that hospital up and running.
Yeah, survivors, shock amid the freezing cold. What's the next great need for people in the earthquake zone, and how is Samaritans Purse responding to meet their needs, Edward?
Yeah, it's just not medical. Yes, we deploy our hospital, but we have about 100 specialists on the ground. It's doctors and nurses, electricians, water specialists, but it's also that specialize in, getting tarp to where it needs to be, to put roofs on, heating sources. We're deploying solar light systems. We can provide clean drinking water. So these are things that will go along with our hospital equipment. We'll send another aircraft if need be. We have equipment on standby and ready here in our warehouse in North Wilkesboro, North Carolina. So we deploy all over the world in times like this, just like we have in Ukraine, in Iraq, Haiti. When there's a crisis, we have the resources God's entrusted to us, and we'll deploy where needed.
Yeah, it's amazing work that you all do, and we're so grateful for it. Edward, what's your prayer for the people of Turkey and Syria at this time?
Yeah, there's so much pain and devastation. People have lost so many loved ones. I'd ask your listeners, pray for Turkey. Pray for healing that only comes by the hand of Jesus Christ. Their government has reached out and asked for our help to come in, so pray for the safety of our doctors and nurses that are going in there, but the opportunities they have to love their neighbors and to be a blessing to those that are suffering. But I just pray for peace that only comes from the hand of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, well put. All right, Edward Graham of Samaritans Purse, thank you so much. And thank you for all the work that you guys are doing.
Thank you, Jen. Appreciate you having us on.
Take care. And to learn how you can help survivors of the earthquake, go to our website, cbnnews.com. All right, in other news, the Pentagon shot down a second high-altitude object over Alaska today. The president ordering it taken down with a Sidewinder missile fired by an F-22 stealth fighter jet. The object was reportedly about the size of a car and, according to the Pentagon, had no significant payload.
The object was flying at an altitude of 40,000 feet and posed a reasonable threat to the safety of civilian flight. U.S. Northern Command is beginning recovery operations now.
And the shoot-down this afternoon comes as we learn new details on the capabilities of that Chinese spy balloon that flew over the United States. The State Department reports it was rigged with an antenna that could pinpoint the locations of communications devices. It could also intercept calls from those devices. The State Department noted it was just one of a group of such balloons that flew over more than 40 countries across 5 continents. Well, the president continues to hammer Republicans over the debunked claim that some of them want to cut Medicare and Social Security. Florida Senator Rick Scott taking the brunt of that criticism. CBN News Capitol Hill correspondent Matt Galka spoke with the senator this week and joins us now. Hi, Matt.
Hey, Jenna, making cuts to these popular programs has the potential to be a major political liability for Republicans. Democrats are making sure they keep turning up the heat on the GOP over the issue.
Some Republicans want Medicare and Social Security to sunset. I'm not saying it's a majority. Anybody who doubts it, contact my office. I'll give you a copy. I'll give you a copy of the proposal.
The president heard a chorus of GOP boos during his State of the Union as he hammered Republicans over the suggestions that the popular entitlement programs could be on the chopping block.
So, folks, as we all apparently agree, Social Security and Medicare is off the books now, right? They're not to be started.
As the negotiations continue over raising the debt ceiling, so did Biden's barbs to Republicans. He traveled to Florida this week, touting the importance of keeping the two programs intact as Republicans look to cut spending.
You have the highest percentage of seniors of any state in the nation. The highest percentage. Folks down fixed incomes, relying on Social Security and Medicare to get by.
Florida Senator Rick Scott is feeling the brunt of the criticism. He's proposed sunsetting all federal programs every 5 years to force congressional reauthorization. That includes Medicare and Social Security.
I know that a lot of Republicans, their dream is to cut Social Security and Medicare. Well, let me say this. If that's your dream, I'm your nightmare.
We talked to Senator Scott following Tuesday's State of the Union and asked about the president's claims.
He should talk about the fact that he signed a bill that cut $280 billion out of Medicare in September. That's exactly what the Democrats did. They all voted for it. $280 billion out of Medicare. We need to preserve Medicare. We need to preserve Social Security. We need to balance the budget. We need to make sure we quit raising the debt ceiling.
And in the wake of all of this, Scott came out with a new plan late Friday that he's calling the Protect Our Seniors Act. Part of the proposal requires a 2/3 vote for any bill that could cut Medicare or Social Security benefits. Jenna?
All right, Capitol Hill correspondent Matt Galka, thank you, Matt. To Indiana, where the FBI uncovered one more classified document at the home of former Vice President Pence. The FBI searched Pence's Indiana home today following the discovery of additional classified material by his attorneys last month. The FBI had already taken possession of classified documents found at the Pence home at the end of the Trump administration. And here with us now is Meredith McGraw, national political correspondent at Politico. Meredith, welcome. Good to have you with us. So as they deal with this classified document controversy of their own, how much of a gift is this Pence probe to both former President Trump and President Biden?
Well, today, the former Vice President Pence spokesperson said that they found one classified document in his home out in Indiana, and they found some additional documents there. Part of the multiple-hour search there in Indiana was to find any additional classified documents and anything that could be covered by the Presidential Records Act. But after what we saw last August with former President Trump in Mar-a-Lago, and then earlier this year, of course, with President Biden, both of them are facing federal probes into their handling of classified documents. This, I think, is in some ways, it's been a political gift to former President Trump and to Biden as well. But there are some key differences between how former President Trump handled these classified documents and also with how President Biden and Mike Pence did. The search today was voluntary. And over the course of last year, the National Archives really had a tough time getting the former President Trump to hand over some of his documents. So we'll have to see where some of these investigations go. But at the same time, there are some differences here.
You know, Pence has always been known to cooperate, and now there's a subpoena order by the special counsel investigating Trump and his role in the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Meredith, do you expect Pence to cooperate this time around?
That's a good question. I don't know for certain, but I would expect so. He has been overall pretty cooperative, and his advisors have as well, including Mark Short and others who have been involved in this investigation.
Let's talk about 2024. President Biden, hot off the State of the Union, says he's not ready to make a decision over a 2024 run, and he says he's dismissing polls suggesting he shouldn't run again. Meredith, what do you make of the president's comments, and what are you hearing? Do you think we'll see him run in 2024?
Well, President Biden really has been teasing out this potential run. He's said that he intends to run again. And part of the reason why he might hold off on officially announcing, of course, is all of the official and legal issues that any candidate steps into once they announce in terms of fundraising and all of that. You know, but at the same time, there is a recognition by Biden and those around him that, well, especially those around him, that his poll numbers have not been great. It really is remarkable. A majority of Democrats would like to see somebody other than Biden run again for president. I would like to see a fresh face step in there. Who that would be, I don't know. But certainly his poll numbers have not been incredibly supportive of him making another run here. But he is expected to announce a decision at some point soon.
Yeah, there were some tough polls for the president this week. I think it was the AP poll that said only 37% of Democrats want him to run in 2024. So we will see. Meredith McGraw with Politico, thank you so much. Good to see you.
You too.
And coming up, the critical threat assessment, which country the Pentagon is listing as the greatest threat to U.S. national security. Welcome back. A recent Pentagon report sheds light on a military buildup in the country considered to be the greatest national security threat to the United States. China has long worked to outpace the U.S. economically, and now its sights are set on the military front. Experts warn if America doesn't act now and the communist regime becomes the leading world power, it could result in an end of security, freedom, and global prosperity. National security correspondent Caitlin Burke brings us that story.
The Chinese Communist Party is conducting the largest military modernization effort in the country's history, a move the Pentagon believes is not only in preparation for taking Taiwan, but also for overtaking the United States as the world's leading superpower.
I see the United States as the world's leading democratic power, and China is the world's leading authoritarian power. So if we don't realize that we're in a competition, we're going to lose that competition, and our core national security, economic interests will be at stake.
The DoD report on China's military strength includes some significant findings. In 2021, Beijing tested 135 ballistic missiles, more than the rest of the world combined. Their nuclear stockpile sits at around 400 warheads, but is expected to grow to about 1,500 by 2035. The PRC is stealing technology from the United States and sending it directly to its military. They have strategic partnerships with Iran and Russia, and they're looking to build new military bases around the world.
Beijing is sprinting to build the capability to carry out their words. They're matching actions with words. That's, to me, the bottom line.
Bradley Bowman, the senior director of the Center on Military and Political Power at Freedom for Defense of Democracies, says China is clearly preparing to take Taiwan, even if it means a direct military conflict with the U.S. He believes how we respond could determine whether or not China displaces America in the power competition.
If you don't like what you're seeing in Xinjiang with what I would call crimes against humanity and some have called genocide, if you don't like what you've seen in Hong Kong with the extinguishment of freedom there, if you don't like what you see with the bullying in the South China Sea, and if you don't like the saber rattling in the Taiwan Strait, if America stands down and becomes insular and stares at our belly button and thinks we can get away with ignoring the world, we're going to see a heck of a lot more of that globally.
Some believe Beijing's military buildup is simply to match the economic power they've become. But Bowman argues without transparent strategic dialogue with the U.S., the Pentagon is right to sound the alarm.
And when we don't have that transparency and we don't know exactly what's going on, it forces the Pentagon to assume the worst. And when both sides are assuming the worst about the other, it leads to dangerous miscalculation.
Bowman says the U.S. has what it takes to deter Chinese aggression, but there needs to be more of a sense of urgency coming from Washington. He says that would involve immediate funding to ramp up our own military modernization efforts and to start acquiring the weapons needed to defend democracy worldwide. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
Thank you, Caitlin. Well, you will never believe the story of an elderly woman arrested for helping the homeless. Why she's fighting back in court next. An elderly Arizona woman who was arrested for feeding the poor refuses to give up her inspirational ministry. And now she's heading to court to fight for the right to feed the homeless in her local park. Billy Hollowell shares Norma Thornton's story.
I don't care what they say. They are wrong and I'm right.
Norma Thornton isn't backing down. Earlier this year, Bullhead City Police arrested the 78-year-old Arizona grandma for feeding the homeless in a public park, a violation of a city ordinance.
As the day was just finishing up and everybody was pretty well gone, last gentleman came up. I dished up his food, and just as he was walking away, a couple of police officers, drove up and asked what I was doing.
Then officers informed Thornton of her arrest.
Technically, I'm supposed to be handcuffing you and everything too, but I'm not going to do that. I don't think you're a hardened criminal. I don't think you're out to hurt me.
I'm not out to hurt anybody.
Although the misdemeanor was later dropped, Thornton was reportedly told she would face jail time if found guilty of any future feedings in the park.
The number one motivation is my Savior, Jesus Christ, and his Father. We are told repeatedly, the first and most foremost commandment is love. Love thy neighbor. Love your fellow man. He tells several times, what you do to the least of my people, you so do to me.
Diana Simpson, Thornton's attorney, says she initially found Thornton's plight hard to believe.
It's such a wild story. You think at first that this can't be real. It can't be the case that a city is arresting someone for helping those in need. And then you find out that it is the case, unfortunately, that that's exactly what's going on. And that violates the Constitution.
Simpson said her client is suing to stop the ordinance and win back the right to feed the homeless again in the park.
We want to get Norma back to where she was before all of this started. Serving folks in the park is really the best place that she's found.
Thornton, now feeding the poor a few blocks away in a private lot, leaves us all with a deeply convicting message.
There is no reason under this earth that any human being should be hungry in this country that we live in. Actually, anywhere in the world, there's no reason for that. Our world is so full of food and luxuries. Why should anyone be hungry? I can't understand.
City officials say the ordinance is to ensure the cleanliness in the park and safety for those being fed. As the battle continues, one thing is clear. Thornton isn't giving up anytime soon. This is Billy Hollowell for CBN News.
And good for her. Thank you, Billy. Well, winning isn't everything. Still ahead. What drives NFL quarterback Kirk Cousins? You're watching CBN News. Finally tonight, he may not be playing in the Super Bowl, but Minnesota Vikings quarterback Kirk Cousins is a winner this year. At the 2023 Super Bowl breakfast tomorrow, the outspoken Christian will be given the Bart Star Award. The award honors an NFL player who best exemplifies character, integrity, and leadership on and off the field. Back when Cousins was drafted in 2012, Cousins sat down with CBN News to tell us what drives him.
I believe that leadership at the end of the day is influence, and I think that more than anything, as a Christian, I want to be able to influence my teammates for Christ, and that's not going to change whether I'm the starting quarterback or the third-string quarterback or not even playing in the NFL. I'm still going to be a leader. I'm still going to influence people for Christ.
And if you look at his website today, Cousins lists 5 defining words on the homepage: faith, family, football, generosity, and leadership. Good for him. Congratulations. And to the Chiefs and the Eagles, good luck. We have a divided newsroom here. Have a great weekend.